So Kiss is one of those bands that have been around for a long time, 50 years to be exact, and they have 20 albums, at least of original material, to show for it, along with plenty of greatest hits records to go along with some one-off singles here and there. And I found this article on VCR Classic Rock and Culture where they ranked the worst Kiss song on every album. So basically they went from their self-titled debut all the way up to their most recent Monster and gave us what they think is the worst song on each record. This was published July 8th of this year, so this is definitely up to date. And I figured I haven't seen the list yet, so I wanted to kind of give you my reaction and see if I disagree with some of these picks that they have chosen here. So let's just get into it, shall we? So they said the worst song on the self-titled record is Kissin' Time. Now, funny thing about this song, and yeah, it is the worst song on their self-titled record, is that the band themselves did not put this on the record. They had 9 original tracks ready to put on the record, but the record label kind of, put it on themselves for whatever reason, and to this day, Paul Stanley says, we didn't even want it on there. I think it says here, it's a gimmicky cover of Bobby Rydell's 1959 hit, Kissin' Time, and I believe this was on some sort of, movie soundtrack or something back in the day. So all in all, Kiss wrote it for a reason, and had no intention to put it on their debut record, but this is one where you can blame their record label for putting it on there. Hotter Than Hell, we have Mainline. Oh, this is the Peter Criss track on here, one of 2. I mean, Mainline, yeah, I guess so, but to be honest with you, I think my least favorite is Let Me Go Rock and Roll. I don't know, that one seems to be way too radio friendly for me on an album like Hotter Than Hell, where it's kind of more of a, grittier and raw type sound. I feel like Mainline fits a little bit better. Maybe it's just because it is definitely the oddball on the record. To me, Let Me Go Rock and Roll has never been one of my favorites, and that would be my vote for the worst song on Hotter Than Hell. Not calling it a bad song, just saying it's not one of my favorites in particular on a pretty solid album. Then we have Dressed to Kill, Ladies in Waiting. I mean, I love the album Dressed to Kill, so you're gonna get a little bias from me, but I guess Ladies in Waiting would be my choice too. I mean, Dressed to Kill overall as an album is definitely more of a pop-leaning record for them, and I guess they were just trying to, do some things, and a lot of this record as well also had leftovers from their Wicked Lester days, and this was one of them, along with She and Love Her All I Can. So at the same point in time, I feel like Dressed to Kill was also the album where they just dusted off a bunch of demos and decided to throw them on there and call them Kiss songs, and Ladies in Waiting probably never deserved to be a Kiss song, but again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's horrible, but all in all, yeah, it might be the worst song on Dressed to Kill. Great Expectations from Destroyer. Yeah, Destroyer to me, even though I love this record, I will say, listening to it again recently, it hasn't had that same oomph that it's had for me in recent years. There's definitely some moments that feel just off. I mean, obviously the oddball on this record is Beth. I mean, you get this loud album and then all of a sudden here's Beth right into it. And with Great Expectations, yeah, it is, it's not one of the better Gene Simmons songs. This sounds like he phoned it in, and this was the era where he wasn't necessarily phoning things in, so that's kind of a bad sign here on an album that otherwise is very, very great, and probably their most known. Rock and Roll Over, See You in Your Dreams, one of the most overrated Kiss albums. Not a big fan of this one. See You in Your Dreams, again, yeah, is another one that I would say is definitely a Kiss song that I wouldn't recommend to many people, but at the same point in time, again, I don't like this record to begin with. Oh wow, on Love Gun, it's Got Love for Sale. That's one I don't hate. I don't know, I feel like it's kind of hard for me to say which one is the worst on Love Gun, because this is my second favorite Kiss record, and from top to bottom, it's really good, but I would have to go with that cover, Then She Kissed Me, as the worst. I'm surprised they didn't go with that one, because that just felt so off-putting on an album that had some really, really good songs, from the title track to I Stole Your Love, even though it's a little problematic. Christine 16, Plaster Caster's nice, Tomorrow and Tonight, and even Got Love for Sale is not an obnoxious song. It's kind of, soothing in a way, and this is one that I do disagree with here. I would put And Then She Kissed Me in this one. Then for Dynasty, we have X-Ray Eyes. Yeah, Dynasty kind of suffers from that, like, oh, the first half of the record is actually pretty good. I feel like when you go from I Was Made for Lovin' You, 2000 Man, Sure Know Something, Dirty Livin', and Charisma, those were like the best 5 tracks that Kiss had to offer. And I mean, sure, there's other good tracks toward the end, like I think Hard Times is a good and underrated Ace Frehley song along with Save Your Love and Magic Touch by Paul Stanley. X-Ray Eyes is just one of those ones where, first of all, it's one of just 2 songs that Gene Simmons sings the whole record. He wasn't necessarily down with this disco idea, so he didn't bring much to the table. So this is probably just one of the few things that he had, and they had to throw it on there for the sake of, oh, well, Gene Simmons can't sing on just one song, he's got to sing on multiple here, when he probably didn't even really want to begin with. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely have to agree. X-Ray Eyes is probably my least played off of Dynasty, but other than that, the rest of the record is pretty solid. Unmasked, You're All That I Want. I mean, I would put a majority of this record on this list if we're being honest here, but, you know, Unmasked was Unmasked. There's people that like the more bubblegum pop lean to it, but to me, it's just kind of cheesy, other than Talk to Me, Shandy, and She's So European. I don't necessarily like a ton of this record, if anything at all. Music from the Elder, Just a Boy. Again, there's probably a lot from this record that I can choose that I would put on here, but yeah, Just a Boy is annoying, it's obnoxious. Paul Stanley's vocals on this, although aren't terrible, can just be downright ear-piercing at some point in time. So Kiss was just trying to do this concept album, and really, they're not that great of storytellers for one song, so to do it in a whole album was just kind of not the right thing, I guess you can say. Wow, Creatures of the Night, Danger. Again, I don't know about this one. I feel like a song like Rock and Roll Hell would make my list for just kind of being more bland than anything. Danger's a lot of fun. Again, Creatures of the Night is an album that I feel like over time people have come to enjoy more, because really this was Kiss getting back to like making like, okay, we're not going to make disco, we're not going to make pop, we're not going to do a concept record, we're going back to strictly just making these heavy songs. And some of their heavier songs like I Love It Loud and War Machine are on here. The title track is amazing, and of course this has like one of their best ballads ever, and I Still Love You on it. And Danger's another one again that I feel like fits the intensity of the record just enough to where I would say it is a good song, but Rock and Roll Hell to me is probably worse than this one. Alright, now we're getting to the Unmasked Days, and this is where it might kind of fall a little bit for me, because I don't really like a whole lot of their Unmasked records. There's only a couple that I can maybe sit through more than half of the time. I mean, Lick It Up's great, and I do like Carnival of Souls more than others. Revenge is fine, and even their Asylum record has, you know, a lot of listenable stuff on it. But when they came to the No Makeups era, I don't know, aside from the singles, I don't really think they were that enjoyable. But on Lick It Up, they say the worst song is And On the Eighth Day. And, yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I've heard it. I'd probably have to go back and listen to it to really be like, yeah, I'm on the same page. But, you know, with Lick It Up, it had some good moments on there. I really like Exciter, that's underrated. The title track is fun. All Hell's Breaking Loose is kind of a weird Kiss track where they delve more into like rap rock in some sort of way, so they definitely do get a little bit more experimental, but it's an album that I say is more top-heavy than back-heavy. With Animalized, Lonely as the Hunter, yeah, this one was definitely weak here. Again, Animalized is not one of those Kiss records that I actually really like. Again, it's got the one good single on it, which is Heaven's on Fire, and everything else is just kind of like, bland and disgusting to me. So Lonely as the Hunter, yeah, I definitely would agree with that one. Asylum, Trial by Fire. That's an interesting pick, because I don't know, I like Trial by Fire. I would say something maybe like Secretly Cruel would be my pick, or maybe Any Way You Slice It, because, I don't know, again, this is just, obviously Gene Simmons was tapped out at this point, so he just kind of came back with a lot of shit, and you can only wonder why we only saw Paul Stanley songs being singles back during this era, because, well, he was the only one that really gave a fuck in the first place when doing these albums without the makeup. So yeah, a Gene Simmons-led song isn't a surprise, but Any Way You Slice It, probably my pick for the worst on Asylum. Crazy Nights, We Have My Way. Yes, this song is just so... As the article puts it, it is the album's most gloopy and overbearing track. It is painstakingly terrible on an album that is kind of terrible in itself. I mean, how is the title track so good and another song like Light Up the Night so good, but everything else is just kind of like, what the hell? Like, okay, maybe Reason to Live's an okay ballad, but nonetheless, Crazy Nights as a whole was just them trying to mimic Bon Jovi, and it just didn't work. Hot in the Shade, The Street Giveth, The Street Taketh Away. This is another Kiss album that to me is probably their worst. They decided to take the keyboards out of things, and, you know, they still kind of stuck, though, with that, like, mid to late 80s sound where rock was just kind of still figuring out what it was, and Kiss was still trying to figure out what it was. I mean, Rise to It was on here. Forever is probably my favorite Kiss ballad, but, I mean, The Street Giveth and The Street Taketh Away. First of all, the title... I don't know, it's a cringy title, and there's just nothing to it. There's really nothing to the whole album and Hot in the Shade in itself, as it's just 15 tracks of mostly nothing. Okay, well, when we get to Revenge, Every Time I Look at You is their pick. I don't know, I highly disagree here. I feel like this is another good ballad. If I had to choose, and I'm not saying this song is terrible, but listening to it now, it's definitely one where you're like, this is gross, this is misogynistic, as are most Gene Simmons songs. That being Domino, like, that one's probably gotta be the worst one, and maybe Spit, even though Spit can be a little bit of fun, Domino's the more demeaning one, so it's like, I would probably make that my choice for Revenge, whereas Every Time I Look at You, it's not that bad. So on Carnival of Souls, we have It Never Goes Away. I don't know about that one. I mean, I think it's an okay song. See, again, I'm one of those ones where I actually like Carnival of Souls, so if you were to make me pick, I actually wouldn't really know. I would say Childhood's End, just because it's never really been one of my favorites, and it sounds really sloppy. Like, it sounds like it's the, like, least done-up song on that record. Like, everything else sounds fine, but for whatever reason, that song just sounds a little too... Let's just say there's something wrong in the mix there, and I don't know what it was, but, you know, at least you can tell Gene Simmons tried a lot harder for this record. Now, this isn't a Gene Simmons-led song that they chose here, it's Paul Stanley, but, you know... In an album where Kiss wanted to get with the grunge times and be different, I can see why people don't like this record as a whole, but all in all, it's a pretty solid record where it's hard for me to pick my least favorite here. Psycho Circus, I Finally Found My Way. Yep, this one. Wasn't this the one? Yeah, Peter Criss, this was his song on the album, and you could tell that the band wasn't making this album together just by the way this turned out, because Psycho Circus as a whole was just so mixed up and down, and it's kind of disappointing because Peter Criss had some really fun songs back in the day, no matter what you think of him. I mean, again, Dirty Livin's a great song. He had Hard Luck Woman. Beth was out there. I like the song Mainline. Most people don't. But, you know, he had some fun songs and a really good voice. But this one was... yeah, very, very disappointing. You can tell Peter Criss had lost his singing touch up to that point as well. Sonic Boom, Hot and Cold. I mean, again, I tend to kind of, you know, erase a lot of Sonic Boom from my memory because I just don't like it. It starts off great with the song Modern Day Delilah, but yeah, after that, you just kind of tail off, so... I'm just going to have to agree here when it comes to Sonic Boom because a lot of that record is unlistenable. And the last one, Monster, we have Last Chance. Okay, again, Monster's another one where I've kind of just like zapped it out of my memory. And, you know, even the the lead-off single, Hell or Hallelujah, isn't that great to me either. I mean, I would prefer Modern Day Delilah as the opening track over Hell or Hallelujah. I mean, this one is probably just slightly better than Sonic Boom, but nonetheless, I remember listening to it. It came out in my freshman year of high school when I was 14, being so excited for it, and listening to it and being like, that was it? Like, I just got duped. This Kiss record sucked. And at the time, I didn't really think a Kiss record could suck, but I found out that they could at that point. So, yeah, there you go. That was my reaction to classic rock and culture and their article where they chose the worst Kiss song from every Kiss album. Now, they did do the solo albums and Alive 2 because Alive 2 had some new songs on there, but I strictly stuck with, like, the 20 studio albums because I feel like those are the ones that you should be focusing on more than like the 5 or 6 tracks they released for Alive 2 and the solo records, because it's unfair to put the solo records into Kiss's discography because it was all their thing. It wasn't like they did it together and created their albums together. They all separated and made those albums by themselves. So that's why I didn't include those ones on here, but I will put the link in the description below to this article if you want to go see the whole list for yourself. But until then, what are your least favorite Kiss songs? If you want to give me from every record, that's fine. But just in general, what are your least favorite Kiss songs? And until then, I will catch you all in the next one.